is this?
Are you guys on today?
We are. We already went. He should have won.
I know that people went last week, but I didn't have everybody. You okay?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
I've been a long Killian, over here. Oh, okay.
All right, guys, let's go ahead. We're going to get started here. Our judges are assembling. Two classes. You got literature and anatomy with little breaks in. Today, because there's other things going on, okay? So, any questions for me at this point? Again, affirmative. Learn and grow into new things. And God, I thank you for all these students and just try to keep this going pretty quickly here, okay, I have to get to my right picture. All right, so we're going to have Brayson and Jackson, then Toby and Claire, then Lizzie and Hudson, okay? So we're going to go bam, 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 just like that this morning. So let's give it up for Brayson and Jackson.
Decades. The Second Amendment states that citizens have the right to keep and bear arms. In the culture of the United States today, majority of adults, including gun owners, support common sense laws to limit gun control, such as background checks, bans to assault weapons, and bans to high-capacity magazines. Most citizens who own guns use them for noble purposes such as hunting, sports shooting, or self-defense. While many people use guns, only 3% of people own 50% of civilian weapons. Only 3% of people own 50% of civilian weapons in the United States. focused on targeting and apprehending a narrow pool of criminals who use guns for their own means and purposes. This leads to a safer public. There are people in this country who have wrong intentions and limit why my limits are proving a safer America. I believe limiting means gun control protects citizens in the United States for the following reasons. The first reason is to ensure guns are sold legally and safely in our country. The second reason is gun control has helped to prevent accidental injuries. And the third reason is to limit the potential of mass shootings. Those who are purchasing a gun are mentally stable and have a clear criminal background check. Licensed gun dealers should be the only ones to sell guns because they are able to follow this process and have a system of checks and balances. Having gun dealers issue license can significantly diminish the availability of firearms to random individuals. These restrictions help create a lower risk of gun incidents and ultimately creates a safer and more well-rounded community. Even Congress saw the importance of restriction random people. In 2014, at an average rate of 343 purchases per day, which equated to 291,000 domestic abusers and 800,000 fugitives from purchasing a gun. The Brady Bill only served to make the enforcement of previous laws easier. The bill established a 5-day waiting period before a gun purchase could be completed. A federal system of exiting background checks was established to make sure that only people who are not prohibited from doing so were allowed to purchase a gun. Background checks are necessary because it allows law enforcement to access information about individuals wanting to purchase a gun and previous criminal records. The second reason why gun control limits are important is gun control laws prevent accidental injuries. 200 people each year under gun control laws does and will contribute to reducing accidental shootings in children and minors. More gun control limits would reduce accidental gun deaths. Studies show that when you have guns in your home, it increases suicide rate. Research shows that access to firearms increases the risk of suicide, reducing the likelihood of self-harm. Limited gun control laws are necessary because they ensure limits of purchase of high-capacity magazines, which are used in mass shootings. High-capacity magazines should be banned because too often turn murders into mass murders. Interestingly, it has been studied in nearly 70 mass shootings in the United States across the span of 30 years that 75% of the shootings came from legally purchased firearms. By allowing gun restriction on legal purchase, the number of mass killings that occur. By creating more restriction on legal purchase, it will help in the long run for more law enforcement and protection of our citizens. My opponent might try to attempt to tell you that any citizen or person should be able to use a gun. They will also tell you that gun control laws are too restrictive and do not stop crime. I've outlined reasons why limiting the means of gun control is better approach and safer in America. In conclusion, we need to have limited means of gun control to keep our citizens safe. It is necessary to ensure that guns are sold legally and safely in our country. Necessary laws are to be put in place so there's proper prevention of accidental gun deaths, accidental injuries, and potential mass shootings is limited to a more safe America. Thank you for listening today.
First, it's important to understand that the Second Amendment to the U.S. Constitution, which says that the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. This means that American citizens have the right to own and carry weapons, and this is a fundamental freedom that should not be taken away. Our rights are who fight for gun control often try to govern our constitutional right to bear arms because of criminals and their actions. They believe the misconception that limiting guns will stop criminals from committing violent acts. A survey released in 2016 by the U.S. Department of Justice found that the vast majority of gun-armed criminals serving time in both federal and state prisons obtain their guns on street or via other means. This means that roughly 250,000 prisoners who committed a crime while armed, over 43% of them obtained their firearm through illegal means. So in the case of these crimes, gun control would have no effect. Violent crimes will stay violent, even if we take away guns. One example of this is found in Australia. In an attempt to reduce violence, Australia made it illegal to own guns. However, in 2023, over 409 victims of there were over 409 victims of homicide. This is 2 out of every 100,000 people were dying every year without guns. More people were dying per year from being murdered than there are days in a year. Where guns are extremely restricted have more violence in places where guns are less restricted because people are able to defend themselves. Don't bring a knife
law enforcement agencies to focus on apprehending criminals who use guns for their own means and purposes. There are those in this country who use guns for their own evil purposes, and limits means to gun control will help set limitations and laws so that it cannot easily cause damage to those around them. Limits means gun control is ethical and makes the United States a safer place because those laws ensure that guns are sold legally and safely in our country. Gun control laws The Second Amendment was ratified on December 15, 1791. It was intended by our founding fathers to protect the right of militias to own guns, not the right of individuals for the ultimate purpose to protect our nation. He also said gun control laws does not stop criminal. However, neither will giving free permission to everyone. Criminals include access to weapons that will empower them to destroy the lives of others or themselves. Law enforcement agencies and agents and agencies that represent are trained to focus on apprehending criminals. Laws that are in place to help them focus on apprehending those with evil ulterior motives.
police response. Citizen untrained in the use of a firearm has an average of less than 30 seconds. In other words, waiting for the police to arrive is much longer than 30 seconds. And after they have arrived, they have to stall the use of any physical means while the criminal is committing harmful crimes. For help, so not having a gun won't stop that. Like I said before, there are too many ways to die for more gun control to do anything. In Kennesaw, Georgia, in 1982, the city required every homeowner to have a gun. After that, crime rates dropped 75%. According to a Washington-based website, UPI, no homicides have been reported in recent years.
Alrighty, gentlemen, how's it feel to be done? Right? Told you you're gonna be doing a happy dance here soon, aren't you? Anyone want to see a happy dance? All right, so really good job, both of you gentlemen. And our streak continues from the judges, and we have our winner over here on the affirmative side again. Brayson, good handshake there. Thank you, gentlemen. All right, Toby and Claire, if you want to start getting in your position. Yes. Getting back in here, thank you. Judges, are we ready? So it'll be Toby for affirmative, Claire for negative for the judges there. Okay. Toby with our affirmative argument.
Is one of the most debated issues in modern society. While the Second Amendment of the United States Constitution guarantees demonstrating that strong gun control measures can lead to significant reductions in gun and live with
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you a story where guns were used for great protection. On May 22nd, Eureka, California, and asked them to leave his property. Some of those involved became hostile and tried to force their way into the homeowner's property. He tried to assault his attackers with pepper spray, but sadly that did not work. When they continued to enter his home, limited gun control. Some would argue that limited firearms will protect the American people and make the United States a safer place. I disagree. The argument is simple. Gun control often punishes law-abiding citizens while failing to stop criminals. My stance is grounded in the principles of personal liberty established in Point 1. The Second Amendment is a balance of power between the government and the people. People need guns for protection, but with to legally own guns. Stripping away this right, even in the name of our public safety, in a limited fashion, is a dangerous path that undermines the principle. The issue is mental health, but this is the deflection. According to the American Psychiatric Association, fewer than 5% of gun-related deaths were committed by people diagnosed with a mental illness. The overwhelming majority of gun violence includes mass shootings are not caused by individuals with a history of mental illness. If we want to incorporate mental health evaluations into gun purchases, it is simple for people to lie and slip through mental health evaluations. Also, people's mental health continually changes, so I can be mentally sound today and buy a gun and tomorrow something traumatic could happen and I could no longer be mentally sound. So if we want to do mental health evaluations, we would need to do them every month, and we would need to pay greater taxes. Point 3. Gun control laws target law-abiding citizens, not criminals. Criminals do not walk into gun stores, submit background checks, and wait 10 days. They get their guns through theft, black market, or illegal trafficking. When governments impose gun restrictions, they disarm the innocent, not the guilty. Chicago, for example, has some of the strictest gun laws in the country, and yet it continues to suffer from high levels of gun violence. Why? Because restrictions do not stop criminals. They create easy targets. The more you limit legal gun ownership, the easier it makes it for violent criminals to act without fear of resistance. Point 4. Guns are a crucial tool for self-defense. According to a CDC study commissioned during the Obama administration, use firearms to protect themselves and others. Limiting this tool from law-abiding citizens drastically reduces their ability to protect their lives and property. In conclusion, limited gun control does not stop criminals. It limits law-abiding citizens. The Second Amendment is a fundamental right that is essential for maintaining a balance of power between the government and the people. We would need to pay greater taxes in order to incorporate mental health services. Thank you.
Thank you, judges. All right, the affirmative rebuttal. Toby.
In the U.S., New York City alone has 36,008 police officers, according to Word Atlas, to help stop crime. Therefore, the citizens there do not need firearms to prevent crimes. What I'm saying is that if we hire more armed police officers, the citizens of the U.S. do not need firearms to protect themselves from harm. By keeping guns off the streets and out of the hands of criminals, it would help prevent the assassination attempts on government officials. It would also make the jobs of those tasked with protecting government officials easier and safer for both the officials and the people protecting them. Take the recent assassination attempts on President Trump, for example. His armed bodyguards immediately took action and protected him, then thwarted the shooter's escapes, making it safer for Trump and the other citizens of the U.S. And yes, while the U.S. Constitution does guarantee the right to bear arms, it was different for them back then than it is now. Think of all the different gun types than they had back then, and think of the gun types that we have now. If we prevent people from owning certain types of firearms, it will help prevent more deaths. Thank you.
All right, thank you, judges, and our negative rebuttal.
All right, thank you, Toby. We've just heard a passionate argument for limited gun access, but passionate is not the same as logic, and emotion is not a substitute for evidence. Limited firearms may sound appealing on the surface, but when you control laws do not stop crime. They create defenseless victims. Criminals do not follow laws. That's what makes them criminals. So when you pass a law saying someone can't have a gun, the only people you're disarming are the ones who were already willing to obey the law. What happens then? The honest citizen is left vulnerable while the criminal is empowered. My opponent Toby will say that fewer guns means less violence. That sounds simple, but it is simply false. Countries like Switzerland, Israel have the highest rates of gun ownership and low crime. Meanwhile, cities in America with the strictest gun laws. If gun control worked, these places would be the safest in America, but they're not. The solution isn't to do mental health evaluations and background checks. You might think it's to fix the mental health system by giving mentally unstable individuals mental medication. But let me tell you the concerning part. 100% of school shooters were on a psychotropic medication for mental health disorder. If we want to look into lessen the school shootings, a deeper look needs to be taken in the side effects and efficiency of those drugs, rather than jumping straight into limiting or banning guns. So in conclusion, mental health is not the problem. Medication for mental health is the problem. And taking away guns will not make the U.S. safer, but less safer. And police are not all.
Makes them feel real good up here. Let's give it up for our judges here while they're scoring. All right, thank you. All right, Claire and Toby, meet me in the middle here, please. Let's give a round of applause for both of them. Great job to both of you. And as you might expect, we broke the trend. Claire! It was very close. Shake, wait, you gotta shake. You guys you both did a great job, very close, but yes, you broke the trend finally. All right. So got a lot of good. Your name is. right, so we are ready for our last debate here. We have Lizzie on the affirmative and Hudson on. Oh, yeah, good, okay. Awesome. Hold on, Lizzie. Judges ready? Okay, Lizzie with the affirmative argument.
Okay. Resolved. Limited means of gun control is ethical and will make the United States a safer place. Shannon Watts, an American gun violence prevention activist, once said, "Gun violence is not a partisan issue. It is a public health crisis that we all background information. First, we need to define what the word ethical means. Britannica defines ethical as the discipline concerned with what is morally right or good. This definition is concise and suits our discussion well. The next definition that we need to establish is mentally unfit. South Dakota state law states that an individual is mentally unfit to stand trial if there exist functional limitations in 3 or more of the following areas of life activity: self-care, receptive or expressive language, learning, mobility, self-direction, capacity for independent living, and economic self-sufficiency. I think this is a good definition that will help us narrow down our debate today. I affirm this resolution today because limited means of gun control is ethical and will make the United States a safer place for the following 3 reasons. It is our ethical duty to protect the mentally unfit and keep guns from their possession. It will reduce violence in our neighborhoods, providing a better place to live, and history has shown that it is ethical to keep guns out of the hands of criminals. Anything that we can do to stop this is something that we must do. Those that oppose gun control primarily rest their case on the Second Amendment of the Constitution, as well as the fact that laws aren't perfect. I will show you today how neither of those things should prevent us from instituting common sense, limited means of gun control. Mental health issues have a higher risk of accidentally or even purposely injuring or killing someone upon gun purchase. Unfortunately, this is because people with certain mental illnesses like bipolar disorder, schizophrenia, extreme depression, anxiety, and obsessive-compulsive disorder tend to have mood and personality swings, causing them to be fine one day to ensure safety of everyone in our community by keeping guns away from those who don't have the capacity or knowledge to own one safely. In a way, I think some mentally ill people can be compared to a child. When you think about it in this way, you wouldn't allow a child to purchase and own a gun. In the same way, you wouldn't allow a mentally unfit person to purchase and own a gun. Statistics have shown that 46% of people who commit suicide have a known mental health condition. On October 30th, 25-year-old Sylvia Segrist violent situation had a mentally ill shooter, but there are a significant number of cases that have. My second reason I believe that gun control is ethical is because it will keep our neighborhoods due to gun violence. Another 32 are shot and injured. In 2022, 34 students and adults died while more than 43,000 children were exposed to gunfire at school. Since the shooting gun violence at school. A way I believe that we could start to tackle gun violence is by getting getting guns into the wrong people's hands is by instituting background checks for private gun sales. Private gun sales are a means of acquiring firearms through a private source and not a legal store. However, could get their hands on a weapon and wouldn't even need a background check. However, the issue is not the private sales, it is the lack of background checks. Michigan Medicine says that about 74% of school shooters ensure that guns only get into the hands of those who are eligible to own one. This will not infringe on the rights of those who are allowed to own guns, but will prevent irresponsible or dangerous gun sales. Finally, my third reason that I think gun control is ethical is because history has shown that we need to work to keep guns out of the hands of criminals. According to the Bureau of Justice Statistics, over 13% of criminals had a firearm on them when committing any kind of crime. Over 69% of firearm offenders were rearrested for a new crime during the 8-year follow-up period, compared to less than half of all other offenders at 45.1%. Firearm offenders have higher recidivism rates than all other offenders in every criminal history category. Firearm offenders and all other offenders who return to their life of crime were rearrested for similar crimes. Gun violence threatens our rights to health, education, and life. The epidemic of gun violence needs to be stopped. It is our job to work together and fix it. Gun violence results in countless deaths and injuries annually and disproportionately impacts vulnerable communities. Ending gun violence is not just a matter of statistics, but a matter of protecting hundreds of lives and it will help the students in our education system thrive. Because school shooting is becoming increasingly more common, helping reduce the chance of shootings will help students focus on education and not have to worry about a shooter getting into the school. The best way to control gun violence is to start implementing effective background checks, especially for private gun sales. It is the responsible thing to do. Those who oppose my point of view may have you believe that the Second Amendment would not allow for limited means of gun control. However, the Supreme Court has frequently ruled that this is not the case. Our nation's highest court has consistently recognized that the Second Amendment is compatible with strong firearm regulations. In the ruling of District of Columbia versus Heller, Justice Scalia noted, like most rights, the right secured by the Second Amendment is not unlimited. It is not a right to keep and carry any weapon whatsoever in any manner whatsoever. Gun control laws because people will always find ways around them. This argument is completely absurd. This is like saying people are always going to speed when driving. Why should we even have speed limits? This obviously makes no sense because a road without speed limits is a recipe for utter chaos and disaster. In the same way, we should not give up on controlling who is able to obtain a firearm simply because they could possibly find a way around it. I refute this argument. I have told you that it is our ethical duty to keep guns out of the hands of the mentally unfit to protect them. And I have talked about the fact that gun control will make our neighborhoods so much safer and comfortable for families. And I have shown you that it is our job to ensure that guns stay out of the hands of criminals. People often think about gun control and automatically call it pointless, but after my argument, I hope that you have seen many reasons why this is not the case. It would be pointless to see issues like gun violence. States, righteousness guards him whose ways are blameless, but sin overthrows the wicked.
Hold on 1 second, Hudson. Judges, just let me know when you're ready. All right, thank you, judges. And the negative argument. Hudson.
Resolved. Are limited means of gun control ethical? Limited means of gun control are not ethical. I'll be telling you why in this argument. Militia being necessary to the Constitution of the security of a free state. The right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Now let's clearly define infringe. Webster's dictionary argue that these laws are necessary, even at the cost of infringing upon a fundamental right.
So in other words, some people believe that they know more than the Constitution that our country was based upon. Here's another thing that Neuralia.org says. Just take a look at California, a state that's had background checks in place for decades. In 2018, a study was released that examined the effect of comprehensive background checks on the state. The study examined nearly 2 decades of data and found that background checks had no effect on homicide rates in California. I want you to imagine this. You're sitting in your living room with your family one night, and someone breaks into your house and has a gun and kills you and your family. You are defenseless because you obeyed the law, but obviously the criminals will break the law, so really gun control backfires and makes life more dangerous. Listen to this true story from the New York Times. I can't tell you the whole story because it would take up too much time, so I'll summarize it for you. 4 people were held behind a steel door in an apartment. It is unknown how long they were kept there for, but the apartment manager says this. Scraps still littered the basement boiler room where they had been held. A sneaker, some plastic cups, stained blankets, and a mayonnaise jar filled with urine. This is completely outrageous. If they had a gun, they could have defended themselves. Here are some more facts to prove my reason furthermore. Chicago has one of the highest rates of gun deaths around the world, and they have some of the strictest gun laws. On average, shootings per year and a better city. No, a better country. Here are some more facts. Heart disease kills the most people per year, so maybe instead of putting gun control on the #1 priority list, we should worry about what's being put into the food we eat. While only 250,000 people died from gun violence, that's only 3% of the people heart disease kills. Is that good enough to convince you? If not, then here's a story from my home. My dad has a criminal record. Not a bad one, of course, but just for an unpaid speeding ticket. So are you saying he shouldn't have a gun to protect us? There was this one bird that kept pooping on all of our windows and pecking at our glass door. He wouldn't stop for days, even at 5 or 6 in the morning, waking us up. So eventually, sadly, my dad had to shoot him, and if he didn't, then the bird wouldn't stop. Another reason limited means of gun control isn't ethical is because of hunting. Hunting is a leisurely activity that gets you food. Do we want to stop people from doing it? Of course not. One last point to always remember. If you outlaw the guns, then only the outlaws will have the guns. I urge you to uphold the Constitution. Thank you for listening.
All right, thank you, judges. Affirmative rebuttal. Lizzie.
Even after my argument, my opponent would still have you believe that the Second Amendment keeps us from being safe in our country. Remember, Justice Scalia, a Supreme Court justice, ruled, like most rights, the right secured by the Second Amendment is not unlimited. It is not a right to keep and carry any weapon whatsoever in any manner whatsoever, and for whatever purpose. In the case of the United States versus Rahimi, Judge Roberts ruled in favor of the United States on the issue of gun control, agreeing with the thoughts of Justice Scalia that gun rights are not unlimited. These are a result of 2 major Supreme Court battles about gun control. Each time the court was clear that common sense measures to provide safety to the citizens of the United States are not restricted by the Second Amendment. Instead, it is well within the right of the government, as established by the Constitution, to create and enforce these laws. Clearly, this shows that it is not ethical to have these laws. Don't let that this scare tactic that limited means of gun control will systematically dismantle every fabric of our union, sway you to believe that we cannot implement common sense gun laws. My opponent and those who support his side may also have you believe that trying to restrict guns from the mentally unfit would violate the privacy of every U.S. citizen, but this is not the case. Strong background checks for public and private gun sales would overall make the United States a safer place, and here's why. An example I'm going to use is drug abusers. It is obvious that they are abusing drugs. This would be considered irresponsible and lacking good judgment, correct? If an individual identifies themselves through some outlandish action while under the influence of a substance, we should take this into account. For example, if a person is high on drugs, you wouldn't allow or be comfortable with a substance abuser owning a gun to use their best judgment. It is extremely likely that they would hurt themselves or others, seeing as the Wyoming State Legislature considers gun or drug abuse as an illness and brain disorder. Looking at it like a drug abuser, it is very similar to a mental illness. Someone who is mentally ill someone. Those opposed to my viewpoint would like you to believe that limited means of gun control is not ethical because it restricts law-abiding citizens and is not fair. This is not true, however, because for citizens who are legal and fit to own a firearm, they would have no issue getting a gun with enhanced background checks. Obviously, it would make it harder for a criminal to get one. Again, if you met the criteria to buy and own a gun, you shouldn't have any struggle buying it. In the same illness that could potentially make it dangerous for you to own a gun, and they could simply decide not to sell it to you, and therefore possibly saving lives. Today I have shown you that limited means of gun control is not ethical and will not make our country a safer place. Today I've shown you that limited means of gun control is ethical and will make our country a safer place. I have shown you that it is our basic and responsible duty as citizens of the United States to protect the mentally unfit by ensuring that we keep guns out of their hands. I've also shown you that we also implement thorough background checks for all gun sales, including private. I've also shown you that by having more gun control, we can make our neighborhoods a safer and more pleasant place to live. Absolutely possible. It absolutely will not undue burden on the citizens of this country. It absolutely is essential to the safety and security of our country. It is absolutely time we take action. Mel Robbins, an American author, once said, if the problem you are facing can be solved with action, you don't have a problem. We can easily take action to solve the problem of gun violence in America. The only problem we could have is to not take action, as my opponent is advocating. I affirm this resolution.
Thank you, judges. Negative rebuttal. Hudson.
Okay, first I'm going to go back to the Constitution and read it again. The Second Amendment to the United States Constitution reads, "A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed." We're not saying sometimes you shall be able to bear guns, sometimes you can't. It's saying you are allowed to bear arms. And my opponent will have you believe that she knows more than the Constitution. Another thing is if we allow this, then it's going to keep getting worse and worse, and it's going to keep going downhill from here. And it's going to start off with like little laws, like we're not going to have a lot of gun laws, and then anymore, and then we're not going to have guns to protect ourselves. Another thing it says in the Constitution, I don't have it written down, but it says that we should be able to have guns because we don't like England did. Their government turned on them and they were able to fight them with their own guns at their house. I didn't have the longest
Soccer duck. Okay. You guys may have noticed I've stopped trying to do math in public. I'll get all that figured out later. I'm not good at it. So I'm seeing the scores. You two come on up. All right. We'll give them a round of applause. A very engaging debate. Thank you both for the hard work there. And we're going back to the affirmative side for Lizzie as the winner. Handshake. Yeah. Both of you, really good job. All right, so middle schoolers, if we can get these chairs pushed out here real quick, they're going to come in here and set up for Faces of History. You've got about let's take 15 minutes and then meet in your middle 1, middle 2 classroom, okay? Help get that pushed out here and then and clear on out. Thank you guys so much. Boom. No, not these. Leave these. Just the ones that are stacked, get them moved over. Oh yeah, they heard it.
So I said either join us for the Okay.